Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to Escape to Nature, where I'm coming to you live from the Djuma Dam camera. This is in the Sabi Sands in the Greater Kruger National Park. My name is Ralph Kirsten, and we are already having a bit of action here at the waterhole. It looks like it's. I think there's three hippos here. I think there's a big male, which I believe could be Dewey, and it seems like another two. I wonder if it's a female and maybe a little youngster as well. So I'll be in charge of the Djuma Dam camera. But anyway, just to recap, it's Ralph Kirsten here, and I'm in control of the Djuma Dam camera, which is in the Sabi Sands of the Greater Kruger National Park. We'll also be heading on over to Okukuyu, which is in the Etosha National Park of Namibia. A couple of naturalists out as well. There's Lauren. She's in Madikwe, which is in the northwest province of South Africa, as well as Andrew. He's down in Amakhala, which is in the Eastern Cape. So there's a couple of us out. I'm in control of the dam cameras, and it's always interesting to see what comes down to the water for a drink or what's lurking inside. And in this current scenario, it looks like we have three hippos. I think there's a bull, a female, and a youngster. And it looks like they're having a bit of playtime now. Do often find that after a long night of having been out, they do generally like to come back into the water during the day and have a bit of a play. It does look like it's quite sunny here in Djuma, but I wonder what the weather is like across all the different locations. So it looks like Djuma probably the warmest of all the locations. It does seem like it's a little bit windy as well, but quite cool, I must say, for Okukuyu, as well as down in the Eastern Cape, but as well as Madikwe. It looks like it's a part of a cold front that has come up from the Cape that's hit the Eastern Cape and probably wrapping around up onto the Highveld and into the northwest, making things cool there. But seems like the hottest day down here in Djuma. One of these hippos, I think it's the male, he seemingly is not taking part in the festivities of the other two, who seem to be cavorting about and having a bit of playtime. Can't really see him there. And that's always one of the risks of hippos, especially when they lie still like that, because you can often think that they're a rock. And I have many times mistaken rocks for hippos, or should I say the other way around. Many times out of my little boat, I've come across hippos thinking it was a rock, and we could go fishing there and getting up close, and then you have to hit reverse in record time. So they are one of the most dangerous animals in Africa. They kill more people than any other mammal. But it's generally around their territories and us not respecting them when we're in the water. So when you see hippos with their big mouths open as if they're yawning, that's what everybody thinks. It's more so them showing you their teeth, their tusks, and telling you to back off. They do it to people, to humans. They do it to other hippos. They also do it when elephants or buffalo may come down to the water for a drink. We've actually seen this here at the Djuma waterhole quite regularly. When the big animals especially come down to drink, and when buffalo come in their big herds, then they do irritate the big bull that is here. And I think it's Dewey, but then you'll see him do that yawning display, showing those big white tusks of his and trying to push them back, because this is his territory and he is very territorial, as are all male bull hippos. So they will do this whenever there's a threat or they're not comfortable with animals or people coming near to their said territory, which is actually in the water. But they also do extend that. When they go out at night, they spread their dung as they move along, and they use their tail to spray it all over the place. And you can, when you're walking in the bush, often see this spread out dung all over little branches, little bushes, etc. And because they're a front gut fermenter, it's a little bit different to the hind gut fermenters in the process that takes place, but it's almost as bad as the hind gut fermenters. But the difference that you can see when you actually come across that dung, it's almost a little bit slimy, but very well spread out and dominated by grass. So they don't really browse. They are very typical grazers. They've got a very square mouth, very similar to a white rhino, and so they are bulk grazers. Going out at night, you can often, if you are in an area where there are hippos present, you'll hear them at night as they bite and chew the grass, and they can really clear an entire area. They're like lawnmowers. So it looks like a little bit of action here on the left. Those two still carrying on their playful nature, the nice and early in the morning. It's getting on, so I'm sure it's warming up there now. It's going to be about 28, 29 degrees a little bit later on in the morning. But with the wind coming through, I'm pretty sure that it will be cooling things down. But it's nice for the hippos. This is a lovely temperature because they're not very good at thermoregulating their internal body heat. So this is the reason actually why they do spend a lot of time in the water. It's all about the temperature. Anyway, that's it. Looks like they've gone under the water, and I'm sure they're going to carry on their play as we go. But while I sit and see what else happens or what comes down to the waterhole here at Djuma, let's go and see what's happening with Lauren.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to a glorious Madikwe Game Reserve. Started off with a bang. Wouldn't be any other way at Clode Dam. It really is an incredible place to start the day for Escape to Nature. Good morning, my name is Lauren. I do have Rian with me on camera, and we are just going to sit here as we normally do because we have the privilege of being close to Clode Dam. And of course, so much is happening already. We've got wildebeest, zebra, impala, grey heron. There you go. You can see it all. Rian will show you it all. No Ellies yet, but it is 9:30, so they're a little bit late. Elephants, where are you? But they will appear. I absolutely know they will appear. I'm not worried about that at all. So I'm very much looking forward to your questions, and hopefully we can have some wonderful discussions. Blacksmith lapwings. Egyptian geese, I can't see the shelduck. Oh, there's just so much happening. The Lanner Falcon was there, but now he's disappeared, I'm afraid. Ah, there's a shelduck. Well done, Rian. I was looking for you. The shelled ducks, the male and female, the iconic pair of Clow Dam. Far more beautiful in my eyes. Beauty is in the eye of the beholder though, than the Egyptian geese. I love them. I love their colour palettes, both the male and the female. Grace, it's a tough one. But I think that big grey bird right there is probably the answer to my question. The grey heron. We spend a lot of time looking at the grey heron on Wild Earth. You normally do find a grey heron around every water body. They're very common, but you also find them in the Maldives. And as many of you know, I spent 8 years of my life working in the Maldives. It's a huge part of my life. Feels more like home than Scotland does. And each island normally has a grey heron. And in the Maldives, they call them the Makanas. And what that means is island chief. They're the chief of the island. You will normally only find one dominant male that sort of owns and runs the island with his females. And he is the island chief. And oh boy, do they act like the island chief. They just have great personalities. They'll come up to you on the beach. They'll try and steal things from you. And it's just wonderful to watch them because they have developed and evolved this relationship with sharks. And the juvenile blacktip sharks, what they do is they normally chase the bait fish, the little silver sides, tiny little fish that come in great big schools. They normally sort of almost work like a pride of lions, actually. Not too unlike the apex predator of the ocean and the land, where they sort of separate and they all target the same bait ball. So they drive the bait ball by coming from all angles, causing chaos, just like lions, and they drive the bait ball to the shore. When they get to the shore, who's waiting? The heron. They get a fright when they see the heron, and basically the bait ball is sort of caught between the sharks and the heron, and then the jackfish come, and Davy and I actually filmed it on an episode that we've just released on YouTube, and it's incredible to sit and watch this, and you can see it all from the shore. Anyway, because of that reason, from filming them to living with them to watching them in South Africa and the Maldives, I love the Makanas. I have a necklace and the pendant is the grey heron. So I think in answer to your question, which is a really tough one, I think it would have to be the grey heron. They're remarkable to watch in South Africa, but for me, their behavioural adaptations and specializations in Maldives are far more amazing to watch. Heron's not scared of the shark, shark's not scared of the heron, they work together. It's crazy.
We hope that when you watch Wild Earth, you will fall in love with nature. We know that our explorers share a passion for nature and want to make a difference. Wild Earth Schools is back. Sign up to be an explorer and your subscription will help us reach the future conservationists of our planet. Invest in something that truly matters, encouraging children to care for our beautiful Wild Earth. Wild Earth Explorers, make a difference.
These elephants are late. Rian has actually come up with a theory, and I'm beginning to think that it is correct. The part of the dam that we do always show you is pumped. It's pumped with fresh water, and Madikwe does have a few pans that are topped up with water because drought has been terrible year after year after year in Madikwe, not this year. And of course, no water, no life. The pump doesn't come on till about 9:30. It may be turned on then, or it may be solar. Rian feels that the elephants come when they know the fresh water is pumping. They either know by routine, they have it sort of ingrained in their memory, or they smell it or they hear it. And that is why they always seem to come at the same time. I think Rian's onto something.
I think so too.
I think you need to come up with more of these theories, Rian. Or they could just have a routine and be like clockwork, but either way they're late today. And I know I've mentioned this before, but as we slide into winter, which oh boy we are, it's very cold, pressure will be on the water holes. And once the sort of pressure is on the water holes, there will only be a few water holes with fresh water in each part of the reserve. For example, in the north, in the south, the east, the west, and that central belt. And it will put a lot of pressure on these water holes, and there will be a lot of animals needing the same resource at the one time. And naturally, as any opportunistic being would, the predators make the most of that. And in summer, you won't see too much predator action around the water holes, but in winter you will. They also need water and they also need food. And haha, the food is around the water hole. 2 for 1. I've seen wild dogs hunt around this very dam 2 years ago. I'm not just talking about the lions and the cheetah. Leopards, I'm not sure. I'm still convinced that the leopard population in Madikwe is really high. Look at all these koppies and rocky outcrops and mountainous areas. Whew. There are a lot of leopards. We just don't see them. They're not as habituated as they are in the Sabi Sand. So much will live up there. Okay, as we sit here and wait for those great grey pachyderms to arrive, we're going to send you guys over to Andrew to say good morning.
Good morning. A very good day to everybody. Welcome to Amakhala Game Reserve. And we've started off with a breeding herd of elephants. Look at this. This is crazy. They're in the dune thicket at the moment. So yeah, we're hoping they're going to come out. Morning everybody. My name is Andrew and Morgan. It's behind the camera. And we are excited to be out this morning. Yeah, and it's a good start because we started off with some elephants. How cool is that? Nice one. Say again, Morg? Yeah, I think so. We should probably reverse the vehicle because the gap of the vehicle is right here. So we're just going to reverse. There's a young calf in the group here, right here. Is this good, Mork? Yeah, there we go. Yeah, so I was saying the gap in the bush is right next to the vehicle here, so they could very well take that gap. And we don't want to be in the way of that gap. What a sighting. This is awesome stuff. How cool. We had a feeling actually that they were going to be in this dune thicket this morning because it's fairly cold. I think the cold front has hit us this morning or is on the way, I'm not sure, but it's freezing this morning. And shame, elephants are very sensitive to the environment and especially weather. When it's cold, you know, there's a calf in the group here. Actually, there's two calves. I'm on the one. Yeah. And they get cold very, very quickly. Very interesting. So it looks like they're slowly feeding in a north direction. Listen, Linda. I think I got that right. It's always nice to see the young calves, don't you think? Well, we enjoy it because there's two brand new additions to Amakhala Game Reserve. It's always a special moment to see young elephants and just young animals giving birth. But as you know, we follow the elephants very, very well here. And we get to know them pretty good. And when we see new little babies, it's cherishing, it really is. I just love the sounds here. So they're feeding, so you're just hearing crackling of the branches and the bushes as they're slowly moving through here. It seems like they want to go north, which makes sense because the water is just on our northern side here at one of the lodges, Bush Lodge. And I have no doubt that at some point today they're going to make an arrival there, and the camp is full, it seems. So a lot of guests are going to have quite an incredible sighting there. Yeah, they're making it difficult for us. Now, last night was very windy, so I'm not sure how much feeding was done with these elephants over here. So this morning it seems like they're pretty hungry and they do want water, but they're in no rush to get there. They're slowly feeding along the way. As you can see, some of them are having a little bit of a tussle as well. Okay, they might just come through this gap here. Okay, we're just going to let this bull come through here. It's too late to do anything now. Off you go. Beautiful. Look at this. Wow. Now they're standing in the middle of the road. This is the type of traffic that I enjoy. Becca, that's a good question. So they've been throwing sand on their backs, and because of that, because there's different substrates out here. There's a bit of the white soil, there's white clay, there's black clay. We're in the dune thicket at the moment, so it's beach sand here. So yeah, that's what they've been throwing on their body, and therefore that's sort of what the coloration you're seeing there. Morgan, shall we go forward?
It looks like they moved off quite a bit.
Is it? Okay, let's go. Yeah, we just make sure there's none in the bush on our left side, but we're going to try and start up and just go forward. Yeah. What a cool sighting. What a cool sighting. Here they are in the middle of the road there. Look at that. Is that good, Mort? There we go. Wow, look at that. They're just flowing through the bush now. Little calf trying to catch up. Oh, there's a tuskless female at the back. Okay, so we have a little bit more of a glimpse of that one moving through the bush, and just like that, they vanish. Incredible sighting. So I just want to let you know that here in Amakhala, we sort of have a sightings procedure, so we have to maintain 15 meters. But as you saw, in a situation like this, the bush is very thick, the roads are windy and windy, it's not always doable, and in some situations, just switch the vehicle off and just let them come through. If I had started the vehicle in reversed, I could have caused them to trumpet or get a reaction. And so I just elected. So it's not always doable to maintain these 15 meters. Okay, let's try and go a bit forward here. I think they've probably disappeared into the thicket now, but let's try. You can see the well-used game trails through the bush here. There's one over here. Okay, I think they've crossed over, Morgs. Just want to take this corner and just see if they're not around there. But they have crossed that direction. There's another well-used game trail over here. Okay. So this is actually initially where we saw the footprints when we drove down the road heading that direction. A lot of sign on the road, and they came from that side of the block. You might even see some of the signs as we drive through here. Oh, this is a sandy patch. It's so nice that the sun is finally coming out and making us nice and warm. Okay, so it looks like the majority of them passed, but there can always be one or two bulls still trying to follow them, so we just got to keep our eyes peeled on that side as well. But look at the environment here. Look how much food there is in here, and cover. So this is definitely the warmest place for the elephants. Okay, I think we're going to try and drive around, see if we can't get them again, but let's go to Ralph in the meantime.
Nice one, Andrew. Looks like lovely sighting there with those elephants, and I'm quite jealous because I really like spending time with those little babies, those two new additions. I was there when on the first day that the first one was born, and then we heard that there was a second one born. But it's lovely to see that. And back here at the Djuma Dam Cam, and well, it looks like exactly what we were talking about has happened. The buffalo have come down for a drink. We're not seeing the hippos sort of come and show how they disagree with them coming into their water, but maybe it's been a long night for Dewey. It does seem like there is Dewey, the male, there's one female and two calves. And speaking of calves, of the hippos, looks like there's lots of calves with these buffalo as well. I think they would have now had a lovely drink, but it does seem like they're slowly moving off. There's lots of little youngsters in between there. And whenever we see the buffalo on Djuma, the traverse or the concession at Djuma it's tiny. It's like a postage stamp. It's only 1,000 hectares. And whenever we see the tracks or the movements of buffalo, we always expect there to be lions behind because they often do follow them. So are we going to see the Nkuhuma Pride? It would be lovely if that was so. Now, it's not the only thing that we think of when we see buffalo, but it is one of the first things that we think of because very often we do see the lions following suit. So is it going to be the case today? We'll have to wait and see. I wonder if the lions maybe potentially come down for a drink after them if we wait a little while. Maybe they'll come on exactly the same route as these buffalo. And that's what it always makes it exciting in these parts in the Kruger National Park, where you have big prides of lions that follow the buffalo around because that's their primary food source. So it makes sense for them to do that, and it makes sense for us to assume that we're going to be seeing lions shortly after we find the buffalo. And we always used to get excited wherever on the reserve. It used to be on the Buffelshoek side of things. That's where the buffalo used to enter into the reserve or into the concession, the Djuma Traverse. And that's when we then used to go looking for the buffalo. And normally, shortly afterwards, we used to find the lions. So who knows? We'll just have to wait and see. Well, this is a very big herd of buffalo. I didn't count, or I wasn't able to count exactly how many there were, but there were a lot more a minute ago at the water. It seems like some of them have already pushed off. So you would assume that the rest of them now are going to start following suit and doing exactly the same. So with these buffalo also, because they are persecuted by lions and predated upon, they do generally keep on the move as well. They're keeping ahead of them and obviously just trying to avoid being eaten. But they do very quickly run into formation or get into formation at any sign of the lions being around. But lovely to see there a nice tiny little baby. A couple of them actually. You can't even see any horns coming through just yet. And a couple of youngsters. There's all sorts of dynamics here. There's big bulls, there's adult females, there's immatures, there's babies. Very healthy herd, I think. And when we speak of predators, apex predators like lions, persecuting and predating on buffalo like this, it's very important because they actually keep the herds healthy. They're taking out the sick and the injured animals, and so they don't really get to continue on with those kind of genetic lines, and then it's important for the predators to be picking off those weaker ones. That then the herd maintains a very good level of health. So even though they're killing them, they actually do assist in the real health of the herd, which is important to remember. Kathy Lee, lovely to have you on board with us. And yeah, it's been a while since I've been on the damn cams. I've done a couple of little interspersed stints on them, but yeah, it's nice to be back. And even though I'm in a remote location, it's awesome to see what's happening on Djuma and at Okukuyo in Etosha, one of my favorite places. So nice to be getting around. Even though I'm not there in person, it's still it's amazing, this concept of being able to control these cameras. And it seems there's more and more of these cameras popping up all over the place at different game reserves and different water holes. And it's pretty special to be able to watch what's going on from the comfort of your home or wherever you may have a good internet connection. You can actually get onto quite a few of these different damn cameras. And if you're a safari enthusiast, I highly recommend it. So it looks like quite a bit of milling around there up on the top right. I think the buffalo might start feeding again. And they might, buffalo sort of go through the stages where they need to drink, they need to chew off a lot of grass, and then they need to spend time resting and ruminating. So that's sort of the cycle that they go through in the day. You can see here some of them even ruminating while they're standing in the water. And it does show that it's quite a hot day. because you don't really see the buffalo going into the water when it's cooler, and you generally find less animals next to water holes when it is cooler. So I think even there at Madikwe, it's cooler than usual. I just love watching their tails swish around like that and throwing the water. You've seen at Kericho, when I've spent a lot of time there, they go and wallow in the mud, and then they're throwing the mud around with their tails. But this youngster, it's an immature because its horns are still a bit straight. He seems to be quite good at the tail flick. There we go. And lots of ear swishing as well. With the tails, the ears, and rocking the heads backwards and forwards, you can see that there's lots of flies around. And that will be irritating. Both the back end and the front end of the buffalo, from their nose, ears, eyes to their rear ends. That's where the flies usually are sitting on them, and sometimes biting as well. So they're irritating and quite sore sometimes too. That's why you just generally don't see too much, stillness from the buffalo, because they're constantly having to chase these flies. A couple of the youngsters getting pushed out there. But lovely to see a nice big herd of buffalo down here at Djuma. Don't see it every day, as I say. It's always nice when we do see them come in, because it's generally action that follows with the buffalo. And you often hear them coming from a distance with that real auk-like sound that they make, that roar. I don't really get deep enough on the call. But that's the kind of noise they make. Carla, the youngsters, always full of energy, hey, and lots of character. I also like watching them, most definitely. And they seem to bound about, in a playful nature, as you get with all the youngsters, generally throughout the mammal group. Always time for play. They're not too concerned with survival just yet. They don't really know what the dangers are. So the blissful nature of the youngsters is fabulous. Yeah, I think we're going to slowly see the exodus now, but there's a couple of lazy bulls, looks like, here. They're being led out by the females. So, just so while we're watching these buffalo sort of move out, we are going to be doing the school drives, and we would like for any schools, if you know of a teacher or a school in your area that would be interested in joining on the school drives that will be on the Sunset Safaris, then please go onto the website or onto the app and register. That's a teacher, as I say, or a school. It would be wonderful, and we then can, connect and reconnect youngsters with the beauty of wildlife, and let them learn as we do, in all these pictures that we do get to experience, from the buffalo to the elephants, the lions, the leopards, and everything in between. I think it's very important for youngsters to get involved. So we'd love for you to help us in that aspect. Looks like the last youngster now exiting. We've gone from about 50 buffalo down to around about 10, I would say. Most of them having already moved off. But you can see the lazy bulls here. It might take a little bit of coercing. It is that safety in numbers that is going to drive them to keep moving with the herd. You don't want to be left out on their own. And you see, just with these bulls lying here, the older they get, the longer it takes for them to sort of catch up with the herd. And eventually, and you might find two or three, it can start with one, but it might then be two or three of them that they just can't keep up with the herd anymore. And then that's when we start to term them dugger boys. And they don't have the safety of the herd, all the eyes and ears. And they're also getting old, so you can find that they do get a lot of arthritis in the joints. And so they're grumpy, irritated, old boys that can be very dangerous, especially when you're out on foot and you startle them, because generally in that position, their best form of defense is attack. So whenever we're out in the field, walking, we are always very careful to try and pick up on any dugger boys resting, and especially when you come near to water holes, etc. Always listening out for those oxpeckers, particularly the yellow-billed oxpecker, because they prefer to be on buffalo, and it's one of the best indicators you do have of picking up buffalo. I can say probably 9.9 times out of 10, I've picked up on buffalo early because of the oxpeckers. So very important to be listening out for them. And I also used to assess trails guides for their competency. And if they miss the call of a yellow-billed oxpecker in a close proximity, that could be grounds for failure, because then you're really going to be putting yourself and your group in danger if you're not picking up that there's buffalo nearby. So it's one of those real important sounds in the bush.
On April 27th, Wild Earth will be celebrating a very special birthday. It's our Sweet 16. We want to celebrate you, our viewers who have been with us every step of the way.
I just appreciate you so much.
Send in your birthday wishes so we can include you in the celebrations.
Happy birthday, Wild Earth!
Video yourself saying happy birthday to Wild Earth with a short note and share them with us on birthday@wildearth.
So those buffalo just slowly disappearing off into the thickets, into the bush. We're losing sight of them. So I wonder where these hippos are. They're staying pretty far away from where the buffalo were, closer to the inlet where the little river line comes in. And that's why I think there wasn't much of a display towards the buffalo. They're a little bit too far away from them. And I think these guys have probably had a long night out grazing, so you often find them pretty tired when they get back to the water. Although the two youngsters that are seemingly in the water were continuously playing. Yeah, we do see them there, still at it. I think the adults, Dewey, the big bull, and the female, they're catching up on some Z's, while these youngsters are keeping the game going. Sometimes wish you could get under the water and see exactly what they're up to, because I think they do get up to all sorts of nonsense. Looks like a bit of a wrestling match. It's a little bit difficult to get the focus right with these sticks and branches in the foreground when we want to put the focus on the hippos moving in the water, and it's not the easiest. Yeah, Grace, I would say so, definitely. Porpoising around. And I often refer to the book, which is sort of a follow-on on Darwin's Origin of the Species, called Almost Like a Whale, and sort of explaining the terminologies and all the concepts that Darwin explained in the Origin of the Species, but in more modern times. And they spend quite a lot discussing hippos being almost like a whale and almost the link between the land and the water mammals, because they've got quite a split life, half in the water and half on land, and it also goes right through to their Latin name. All right, so we've had hippos, we've had buffalo, we've had elephants, and I'm sure Lauren has something exciting too.
Well, look what we have here. Can you honestly believe it? We have a dead giraffe carcass in the water at Pukoje Pan, which means jackal, Jacopan, and we have hyenas in the water feeding on it. Cannot believe it. This is like the sighting I've been waiting for. It's quite far. It wasn't the closest place to get to, but so far I can only see 2 spotted hyenas. What was that, Rian? Oh, well spotted. Looks like it's sleeping on a dung pillow. And we have some jackals scattered around as well. So I don't have the history. I don't know how this giraffe ended up here. I really have no idea how it got here, when it died. But of course, for those of you that don't know, hyenas are my ultimate favorite animal. Spotted hyenas, that is. Brown hyenas are not too far behind. But look at it just feasting on that carcass, like in the water. Oh, right in the ribcage. Wow, hyenas have no table manners whatsoever. This can't be a new carcass. This must have been here for some time. How did it get in the water? Hilda, this is so incredible. I've actually never seen a hyena feeding in the water like this. Obviously, I've spent a lot of time with hyenas in Djuma and the Masai Mara, but I've never actually seen them in the water. We actually passed a few spotted hyenas on the way here with lots of little ones. So I think there's actually a den nearby. This is prime spotted hyena spot. You've got a little something on your chin there. I can only imagine now that the smell of this carcass is in the air, that this will attract a lot. Hyenas will come and go. Don't know about brown hyenas actually. I don't know how they would be coming to the water like this. Unbelievable. I love hyenas so much, but they really will eat anything. Anything. I just wonder what else this area will attract. I don't imagine jackals will go in. Jackals are really small and are not really known to like the water, whereas spotted hyenas are. They are known to really enjoy water. You'll see them lounging in water all the time. In Djuma, we call them the low-felt spotted seals. Catherine, you're saying this is a first for you. Not sure it's a hyena pool party just yet. I think you need more than one for it to be a pool party, but we're getting there. Hopefully more of them will go in the water. That's be something I would really like to see. It's just so nice to see hyenas. I feel sad when I don't get to see them, and we've been trying to get that brown hyena den for you all, and it's taken a lot of effort and a lot of driving, and we're just not getting lucky right now, and it just makes me so sad. Oh, this one's been in the water. Look at that white bottom. The one we saw earlier was also full. I think maybe they've been feeding on this all night. I wonder the backstory. I wonder how this giraffe got here. Did it die of natural causes? As that sun really starting to heat up, oh, I can only imagine the smell that this giraffe is going to give off. I don't know if you can hear that, she's crunching through the bones. Yes. Yes. We'll go Pritchard much quicker, I think. But I mean, to a hyena, I really don't think that matters. I've seen them eat the most putrid of carcasses, and Yes, seen the most unpleasant things when it comes to hyenas, and yet I still adore them. Ariane, I'm not sure if are you able to see that jackal at the water's edge, or is the pole in the way? They're kind of positioned on a dam wall, so it's a little bit tricky.
I can see that. There's another spot here right in front of us.
You want, don't you? How are we going to get it though? It's a big challenge. We don't want to drink water here, we want the carcass. Wow, this hyena is really, really getting in there. It's actually sitting on top of the giraffe. I'm going to try and find out this backstory. Ah, Rihanna's trying to show me that there is another low-felt spotted hyena. There we go. There are 4. I'm thinking, where does he see this? I don't have a view from this angle. Well spotted, Rihanna. There is another one. This hyena will love it. Not only is it getting very, very hot, I need to top up my sun cream, I think. Not only do they love water, their food is in the water. And therefore, vultures, jackals, they've got it all to themselves until the lions get wind of this. I really hope... the monkeys have eaten my sun cream. Luckily I have a backup one. I'm going to apply sun cream, people, but it would be great to see if other hyenas actually join in. This could be a dominant female. Obviously I don't know the clans here. So if this is a dominant female, then she may actually be able to keep the others at bay. This is such a cool sighting. But for now, over to Andrew and Amakhala.
Okay, so we've been watching this group of elephants for a little bit of time now, and it's quite funny that it's happened twice this morning. Oh, look there, look there. Yo. Yeesh, that's never good. Shame it's bulls of similar age. One is chasing the other one. We've been watching them this morning. They've been sort of eyeing each other for quite some time. and they've been doing a lot of the trunk wrapping and sort of a headbutting. And it seems like this morning they're not the best of friends. But we actually noticed that when that bull who ran away now, who was in the road, he stopped right in the middle of the road, and he was sort of feeding, but he was more watching this bull that chased him. No, you don't want to get caught in the middle of that. And you can see how we park the vehicle. We are way out of their way over here. And that's the one thing when you do this, you always got to be strategic in where you park the vehicle. That's imperative and very important. And it seems like they've just crossed over. We'll just wait for the other one to cross over. But they have been weaving through the bush for quite some time now. Can you hear an African hoopoe? I also heard a red-fronted tinkerbird this morning. Okay, so there he comes along. So he seems to be the last one that needs to cross over. And once he crosses over, we'll probably lose sighting of them. So he's taking the wide way around. Look at that, just behind a couple of bushes, and God. Makes you appreciate how they can blend in, doesn't it? Just like that. Okay, let's just wait and listen. We're just going to listen for some more branches breaking, just to identify where the rest are. Okay, we're going to just try and drive around, see if we can't see them one more time, but let's go to Ralph in the meantime.
Wow, it seems like there is also with that hyena feeding on a giraffe, and well, that's at Madikwe, and with Andrew, those Ellies. I do miss them. They're on Kariega, not Kariega. I've been on Kariega and Amakhala, where Andrew is, both here in the Eastern Cape, where I am. But back to the Djuma Dam, Cam, and now, just like Andrew's elephants having disappeared off in the brush, and it looks exactly the same with our buffalo, who have disappeared in the brush. I think they're probably heading down the river line itself in the direction of the Mulwati. But yeah, that is how quickly animals disappear in the bush. And it's always very interesting, especially when you're up close with them, how quickly they do dissipate and disappear. And sometimes also they do it in silence as well, particularly elephants. It's amazing how silent they can be in the bush, but they can also be very noisy when they want to be. However, currently here, the hippos are still busy doing their thing, but there you can see just in the background those buffalo moving off. I'm just trying to have a look and see if we do spot anything else. It's always good to scan. As I say, with the animals disappearing in the bush like that, with the real extreme camouflage that they do have in blending in, it's important also just to scan constantly, because you never know when we're going to pick up on a leopard, or like we were talking about earlier, the lions, in particular the Nkuhuma pride. I'd love to see them. Hear the hippos calling there. One of the most iconic sounds of the African bush. What are those sounds? I would say hippos are up there. Woo! Woo! The call of an African fish eagle, a lion roaring, jackals calling, hyenas. Those are all of favorite sounds for me. So now that the buffalo have moved off, it is a little bit quiet. It doesn't seem like the wind is extremely strong. There is quite a breeze, but it's not as bad as I thought it might be. We're going back here to where the hippos were playing. Seems like that's the most activity now, but still just scanning across, seeing what else might pop up. Jazz, absolutely. And the birds' calls, all the birds calling, that's always wonderful to listen to. And picking them out, it's like an orchestra. You need to pick out all the different instruments. Earlier, there were some meaves or long-tailed starlings just on the bank there, and often you do see the nyala coming down to graze on that particular bank. And it was somewhere around there that we did see earlier in the year. Well, it was actually last year, as time is going, that I was watching the honey badgers digging up sand frogs on the opposite bank, but don't see any now. And the most activity we do have is with these hippos, seemingly now underwater. And that's the old joke, as we say, with the call of the hippo. They go underwater, tell each other jokes, and come up laughing. And of course, the ever-present call of the Cape turtle dove or ring-necked dove. Looks like the activity is calming down. I think those youngsters might now be getting a little bit tired. They'll probably also go for a snooze. They're getting slower and slower in their movements. It looks like there's still a game on hand. So we say Dewey, he really likes playing with sticks, but now that he's got a bit of company, I think he does that more when he's on his own. He loves playing with branches, sticks, logs. Now that there's a few more of them here, I think he does it a bit less. But I'm very happy for him. He has spent lots of time here on his own, and now at least there's a bit of a pod. I often also get the baboons coming down for a drink here, and they like foraging all around, especially on that opposite bank, and then up towards the lodge itself. And then we do often see the likes of a nyala, impala, and all sorts coming down to feed next to the water, where there is generally good grazing and browse. Otherwise, relatively still. So this is the time when it is still that we always want to say, send in your questions and your comments. We'd love to start a conversation. What would you like to chat about? What are the waterholes that you like watching? Wherever it might be across the globe, chat to us. Let us know. That's the beauty of a live and interactive game drive, or as we escape to nature, it's just an awesome concept of being able to engage with you as we would with people on the back of a vehicle, but with a much wider audience. Mel, Crocodile River, yes, and elephants in the water. That is, it's always amazing. I've, all the recollections of the different elephant sightings I've had in water, whether it's in a river or in a lake or a dam like at Jusini or Pongola Poort, or these smaller little water holes. They really love being in the water. I think. If elephants could choose, they'd also be a bit more like hippos because they just really love the water, love playing in it, love bathing, throwing the water all over themselves, and you generally see them get into a real playful mood when they are around water bodies. So as always, just continue on this scanning around. And as always, we look for some birds as well, especially when it's quiet. You can generally find lots of birds, especially calling. There's an Egyptian goose. But can you tell me what those two birds are in the middle of your screen? Let us know. Come on, let's test your birding knowledge. They're generally nocturnal. Let us know. What birds are those? I know what bird they are, so I'm not asking you to tell me. I'm testing your knowledge. Egyptian goose on the right, those smaller little ground dwellers that have just disappeared off into the brush there now. So you can't see them anymore. Looks like they've been blown off there. The wind seems to have picked up quite a bit. Looks like the Egyptian goose is going to go in for a swim. There's one of those birds on the right now. Which bird is that? They've got a very high, shrill call as well. Very high pitched. So that's it. Testing your bird knowledge. Just keep scanning for anything else we can spot. Are we going to see some spots, rosettes in the brush, or are we going to see some tawny colors of a lion? That's what I'm hoping for. And, or, as we were speaking of as well, some elephants. That would be nice. It seems like the weather is a little bit cold across the other locations, and I think it might even be raining in Okukuyu. Very quiet at that waterhole, and I do see some spots on the camera. It looks like it might have some precipitation. There's a tambuti tree, and then that corner on those fallen over logs, we often do see terrapins and monitor lizards coming out to sun themselves, but they used to use that quite a bit more when the water level was a lot lower. As we head off onto the right here, that's a spot where we often do along that road. See the leopards, sometimes at night. Hyenas also passing here quite regularly. Generally at night though. Back to our hippos. Still keep looking as we go. So nobody know what birds those were? Do I need to tell you? There's an old name and there's a new name. Absolutely, Jules. Those were thick-knees. Now, were they spotted thick-knees or were they water thick-knees? You tell me which ones. Both look very similar. Slight differences between them. A little bit different call as well. So they used to be called a dikkop.
Towards the end of May, I'm going to be heading back to Djuma, which is one of my favourite places. Now, as many of you know, we need a little help keeping our operations going. For those of you who donate $100 or more, I'll take you on a private safari. It won't be entirely private, there may be 20 or so of you there. But you'll still be able to answer any questions that you might have. We'll visit all the places that you want to, and we'll look for all the characters that you'd like to see.
as I was saying, with there being a lot of wind, it can assist remaining undetected if you're a predator, whether you're a lion or a heron hunting fish. It does help because in this particular instance, it does make the water more noisy with the lapping at the shoreline, as well as breaking up the outline of the bird as it approaches with the different refraction of light as it's moving around a lot. So it can work in the heron's favor, as it may well do for leopards, lions, cheetah, and the rest to remain undetected as you go looking for prey and for food. Oh, there's a strike. Looks like he got it. Whatever it was, a fish or a frog, I'm not quite sure. You'll find lots of minnows and things staying in the shoreline there and in amongst the vegetation. Could be anything. I think it may have been a red-crested Quran calling in the background. Looks like he's still hungry, still on the hunt. I'm just being a little bit quiet, just watching this guy as he goes on his hunt. Slow, silent approach. While we're watching this guy just look for food, I just want to let you know that there will be a town hall with CEO Andrew Crawford Brunt and the co-founder of Wellington, and that's going to be at 7 o'clock Central African time on the 23rd of April. So note that down, and it is indeed open to everyone. Although we'd still love for you to register and subscribe on the website as well as the YouTube channel and download our app, the Wild Earth app. And then don't forget about that town hall. as we go back to seeing the rock that is indeed a hippo. I'm pretty sure that's Dewey. Catching some rays. Probably not going to be very active for the rest of the day. That activity would have been reserved for the night, as he normally heads off up in the direction of the opposite bank there. And I think towards Buffelshoek Dam, somewhere in that area, grazing along the way, probably part of his territory. I think maybe even Buffelshoek Dam is part of his territory. He's been in there before as well. There's a nice call. And that obviously is also part of marking the territory, the auditory or the sound of them calling. It's like lions roaring or leopards sawing. It's all part and parcel of marking your territory, from visual to auditory to nasal, leaving smells, leaving sounds, leaving sights for the greater part of your territory. It's important to keep marking it in all those ways. And the more you mark, the better held. Ingrid, it's quite difficult to tell when a hippo is pregnant. It's very difficult. Unless you see them out of the water, and you see them regularly out of the water, they don't really expand that much more, if I can say. It's quite similar with rhinos, with elephant. It's difficult to tell. You normally just look at the mammary glands, and when those obviously swell, then, unless there's a baby already with them, it's generally a telltale sign that a baby is imminent. But actually telling from the size of the animal itself is very difficult. There's a slight change. It looks like they just get heavier, but they don't really bulge that much. So it's quite tough. And it's important for them to be able to maintain, that they are able to move very quickly in the case of lions pursuing them or whatever, from predation. But yeah, not easy to tell, I must say. Always a telltale sign of their ears flicking, just getting the water out of their ears. Nice dead tree there, probably a leadwood. Could be a marula though. But important to have these dead trees. It's very good for the birds, good points for them to come and sit on, whether, birds of prey, raptors. Also do then make lovely resting points or homes for the likes of woodpeckers and barbets. Also feeding for woodpeckers as well. They go for those wood borer beetles with their very long, spiky tongue that they stick down the holes, first knocking off the bark and then sticking their tongue down, which they do say the tongue extends all the way in and around the brain, acting as a kind of shock absorber for when they do their knocking on the side of trees or on those dead logs and branches, that they don't give themselves concussion, because they do really smack it hard. And without some kind of pressure release or shock absorber, they would really do themselves some damage. If you've ever seen a woodpecker up close when they are actually knocking, especially when they're making their nests, they really give it some strength. They really hit it hard. And you can imagine with that kind of force, it would rattle their brains around quite significantly. Those buffalo have rested up, it seems. Not comfortable resting in the water. But I wonder if that's not just one or two of the... No, there's some more in the background there as well. Spur fowls now calling. So when you see those horns just poking out like that, just think, if you were on foot, that's very often all you would see. Just a couple of those horns there. And yeah, when you're a trails guide, those are the kind of little things that you need to pick up when you're walking in the bush, because just that early sign for you can literally mean that you stay out of harm's way. So very important to be able to pick up these little clues that you get. And on a windy day like this as well, you might not even be able to hear the oxpeckers. So you need to have your eyesight as number one when it's very noisy out there. And it does make the animals rather edgy at these times as well. When there's lots of noise, lots of smells, we find the animals normally on edge when it is very windy. Not that those sleeping buffaloes seem to be on edge, but they've got the safety of the group. So they're relying on the others to pick up anything that would be of danger. And I think it might be those lazy bulls. Quite a bit of movement in there. Coupled with lots and lots of wind. Nothing like what we get in the Eastern Cape, however. I just keep on scanning, see what else we can find. Lovely tamboti tree there. Jill. What's my favorite tree? I have to think about that one. Obviously really like the marulas because of their lovely fruits, and obviously attracts a lot of animals around them. Baobabs, obviously very iconic, massive trees. But I know what my favorite tree is. It's a Welwitschia mirabilis. The very ancient trees that you get in Namibia, in the desert, and they don't even look like trees. Have you ever heard of it? Have you ever seen one? They only have 2 leaves. They look like they have more, but it's just stripped by the wind. They're ancient trees because they take so long to grow. It's 20 years before they get their first leaf, and 50 years before they get their first flower. So very, very interesting trees are the Welwitschias. And there's no common name. It's only the Latin name, Welwitschia mirabilis. Have a look. Very, very interesting tree, that. You see these waterbuck now moved into the area, grazing. And something that also goes with the Welwitschia mirabilis is a very interesting insect. And it's called the Prothoncephalus sexplantata. That's the name, but it's also called the push-me-pull-me bug because of their very interesting way of mating back to back. So they do push and pull each other around when they are mating. Interesting. But then the larvae and the adults as well, but mainly the larvae, that live on the plants themselves help with pollination. Right, so for any new viewers that have just joined us, hello and welcome to Escape to Nature, where I'm coming to you live from the Djuma Dam Cam in the Sabi Sands, which is in the Greater Kruger National Park. So I'm not there in person, I'm literally remotely controlling this camera and chatting about everything that we see that comes along. I've also got control of the Okukuyu Dam camera in Etosha National Park in Namibia, but it's a little bit rainy there today. So I've been sticking here with the Djuma Dam camera, and we've been watching the hippos. They've been having a bit of a wrestling match, a couple of the youngsters. And then there was a whole herd of buffalo that came down to drink as well. Lauren's been out on Madikwe in the Northwest Province, and she's been at one of the waterholes as well. There was general game, and then she came across a spotted hyena with some jackals that also pulled in at some stage, and that hyena was feeding on a giraffe carcass that's actually in the water. So quite interesting there. And then Andrew, who's out on Amakhala in the Eastern Cape, he's had a lovely morning with elephants. And he's actually been able to catch up with two of the new additions to the breeding herd there, two lovely little baby elephants. So that's been wonderful. I think he's probably moved on now, so we'll go back to him in a little while. But also, just remember, this is an interactive experience, so please send through your questions and your comments. And we'd love for you to subscribe on the YouTube channel, the Wild Earth YouTube channel as well, and jump on board with us. We'd love to hear from you. Nice cute little baby there as well. So they're slowly heading in the direction of what we call quarantine. This is a square patch of land in the direction that they're going. Previously was used, as the name suggests, as quarantine. I think it was actually for livestock, but they may have used it afterwards for wildlife as well. But this is still connected to the Greater Kruger National Park, but this is in the Sabi Sands itself. So it's open to the Kruger, no fences in between. So the animals have free rein. They come in and out here, but they can also move into the Kruger Park itself from here too. This is in the northern Sabi Sands. Super easy to tell male and female with waterbuck. Males got horns, females don't. Obviously the babies, when they're super young, male and female don't have horns. As they grow up a little bit, and they do start to get their horns after a few months. But I was chatting about this wildlife for the babies to mimic females for as long as possible, because as soon as they sort of show any signs of being a mature male, that's when they get driven out by especially the animals that are territorial, whether it's over an area or over females. Then they do run the risk of having conflict with bigger, stronger males. So the longer they can look like a female, the better off they will be. And we see with Nyala, they really do look like females, the males, up until they are basically fully mature. And then they change their coat and their horns fill out. So I think that in itself is an evolutionary adaptation to avoid conflict with the same species by remaining as, or looking like, smelling like, acting like a female. whenever I see the rings of waterbuck, I always think of pinning the tail on the donkey. So Freddie, generally, we'd say that, and there's always exceptions to the rule, and waterbuck would be one of them. But generally, we would say that animals that stay out in the open plains would, both male and female, would have horns, and animals that stay more in the thickets would only be the males that have horns. So if we look at the likes of red hartebeest, wildebeest, both black and blue, what else? Springbok, both male and female across those species have horns, and they're all grassland or open plain animals. Waterbuck a little bit different because they like to stay around, water holes, and they do spend a lot of time in marshy areas. So they're a little bit of an exception to the rule, where it's only the male that has horns and not the females. But generally, if you look at kudu, impala, bushbuck, they're all browsing animals. They like remaining in the thickets, and it's only the males then that have horns, and it's particularly for fighting amongst other males. So it's intra-species competition that's the major reason why they do have those horns. So, for instance, this male, he would be using his horns to fight with other males. Whereas out in the open plains, the thought is that they've evolved those horns for experience. It doesn't really help them that much, except for the likes of oryx, who are very good with their horns. So it's an absolutely amazing weapon that they have. But in general, it's actually more so for within their own species fighting amongst themselves. So it's actually habitat based. Whether you're out in the plains or in the thickets, depends then if both male and female have horns or just the males. We look at these trees here. We're often going on to this spot because there's the brown-headed parrot's nest. Do you see just underneath that stick? Is that one there? Yes, it is. There we go. Perfect timing. Peekaboo. So there is a pair there. Let me see one for now.
From the 17th to the 22nd of April, Wild Earth is hosting Earth Week. Join us as we spend time with people who are making a difference on our planet. Earth Day is about diversifying, educating, and activating the environmental movement worldwide. Come along each day as we focus on different elements of our beautiful natural world and invest some of your time in the planet this Earth Week with Wild Earth.
what else is going to pop out of the thickets. It's got to keep scanning because a moment ago we didn't see those waterbuck. Suddenly they were there. Now they've pretty much moved off as well. And then often when we go back towards the water, we have a surprise again. We don't have the luxury of being able to look behind us. So as I continue on panning and scanning, seeing what else we can find here, wonder what is going to show itself. But having said that, I wonder what's showing itself on Amakhala.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Hope you're enjoying dam cams there. Yeah, we had to leave the group of elephants. Unfortunately, they went into a block of land that was particularly difficult for us to even think about driving around and following them. So we thought we'd just leave them be. And so we've just made our way towards the plains, and we've got some nice plain zebra. Nice variety of things to be seen today. Shame that young foal there in the middle. It's looking a little bit uncomfortable. I think the wind making it a little bit cold. I see that fur is standing upright. Ears are all cocked back, just trying to bask in the sun there and get warm. Definitely a good spot for these zebras here. So of course they do like the plains, which is just to the right hand side of them. It's just vastly open on that side. But on the left hand side of the road, this is where the dune thicket starts. So it seems like they want the sun, but also just trying to get a little bit of cover from the cold wind. Now the wind isn't blowing too strong now. I don't know what it's going to do this afternoon though. Yesterday it was some pretty violent winds, I must say. And often, you know, when we have these pretty windy days out here at Amakhala, often think about how the weather is in Port Alfred. So Ralph, I know you're out there at the moment. You can just let me know how the weather is and how was that wind last night. I believe it was pretty strong that side. Indeed, Ollie, morning to you. Definitely. These young foals, they are very fluffy. You must see them when they're born. They're incredibly fluffy. Yeah, I see they've just shuffled a little bit more into the sun. Morgan, should we start up and go forward? Yeah? All right, let's do that. Must say, it's really nice in the sun at the moment. Okay, let's see. Yeah, they are just about to cross the road again. You say the word, Morgan. Yeah, stop here for now. There we go. So now you can see what I mean about just on the right-hand side being, or sorry, the left-hand side being so vastly open over here. Nice grassland over here. Really look forward to the pan filling up with water, and then we can expect to see the giraffes come out this way again. Who knows, maybe even some buffalo. But for the time being, they're going to need to sort of go into a different area where the water is present. Look at this one in the middle of the road. That's cool. Another one crossing. Just beautiful. Watching them move off. It's always nice to watch zebras, just a little bit on the stroll, heading towards the pan, but I'm sure they know that there's no water in there at the moment. Now, don't forget about the Quizmania Marathon that's taking place. It's going to happen for the first 2 hours on the Sunset Safari, Saturday and Sunday. So you can get involved in that, and that's going to be your sort of initiative in aid of Earth Month. Definitely get involved in that. Something cool to do. And that's Quizmania Marathon. Many of you have participated in that already, and I see a lot of you are having fun with that. I often think about how well adapted these animals must be, because sometimes, you see zebras and it's raining, for example, or there's a howling wind, and all they have is just a small bush to try and use as a windbreaker. They must be really tough. I think, if it's raining or if it's really cold at night and we're stuck out there, even with layers on, it's a hard time. It's uncomfortable. And the animals, sometimes they look on their faces as if they are not perturbed by it, which I've always found it incredible. But then other times, when it's raining very hard, shame, these zebras, they try and sit right next to the bush and just wait for clearer weather to come about, and then they go back and do their normal activities, which most of the time happens to be grazing. Oh, Heather, I'm not even sure on that. The time period on a zebra foal suckling, that's a good one. I can try and guess and see how wrong or right I am. I would say, it's going to be really dependent on the mother's milk, I would say. And then I'll check this up afterwards, see how close I was. I would say probably at least the first 6 months is solely milk, if I was to guess. And then after that, it's going to begin grazing. And then until it's totally independent of the mother's milk, I would think maybe about a year and a half. But let's check up on that first. Okay, we're just going to start up again. See if we can't get a little bit closer to these zebras. That'll be cool. How would you like the angle, Morgan? Further on? Yeah. Okay, let's try get past that sweet thorn bush there. Then we should have a good view of them. Turning here, Morg? All right. All right. There we go. Shame, they seem fairly relaxed right in the middle of the open plains here. Good spot to be in, I think. That's where they're going to get the most warmest. Okay, it's interesting. I'm just having a look at the information here. So it says most zebras are fully weaned between 7 and 11 months of age. That's pretty interesting. So it's a very quick process. And when we look at zebra foals, from the moment they're born until they're like pretty much fully adult, it's a very short time. Makes a lot of sense because they can't afford to be small and babies for too long. Otherwise, the predators are just gonna catch them and eat them. So get big as quickly as you can, and then start your life before the day comes that something happens, which is usually being hunted by a predator. It's very seldom that animals actually die of old age, although it does happen. Leopard lover, do I have any bush tales about zebra? Not really. Morgan, what about you? Bush tales about zebra. Yeah, we'll have to think about that. There will be some folklores when it comes to, you know, a striped animal like this. It's going to be a lot of folklores. But there's a folklore when it comes to ostrich and giraffe. And it's more or less the same one, but we'll use the ostrich as the example because I know Darcy Miller loves them to bits. So let's use the ostrich. So the story goes in African folklore, and I bear in mind that African folklore was designed by the hunter-gatherers as a way of having storytelling. So gathering around a fire, telling a story to the youngsters. They didn't have TV and radio and things like that, so they needed to sort of, you know, come up with their own little devices to occupy their time and just, you know, socialize as a family. And some of them are really amazing, some of these folklores. But they say with the ostrich, one day the ostrich was walking through the bush and was getting pretty thirsty. So it went to one of the watering holes, but didn't know that there was a crocodile lurking in the water hole. Went down to drink and put its beak in the water. And the next thing, this poor old ostrich got thrashed by this crocodile. But the ostrich said it didn't want to die, it wanted to live, and it was very persistent about that. So the ostrich put its very strong legs firm to the ground, dug its nail into the ground, and pulled and pulled and pulled. And it pulled so hard that it stretched the ostrich neck until when the crocodile eventually realized that it's not going to be able to hold on for much longer, just open its jaw and let the ostrich go. And the ostrich found itself with an incredibly long neck. And that's how an ostrich looks today. I've always found folklores very interesting. And the best thing, and I don't know if you'll be able to YouTube it, but there are some still Khoisan or Khoi speaking people, and they describe these folklores in their local way with all the clicks and the clacks and all of that. And you can actually picture what is going on, an animal's being killed or something like that, just by the sound effects that they make. So try and have a look up that and see what you think. So I just want to tell you one of the memories that I have here in Amakhala. It happened a good few years ago, about 2.5 years ago, maybe 3 years ago. It was still during the COVID time, and things were pretty difficult during that COVID time for everybody. But Amakhala, as a reserve, pretty much had no guests for a very, very long time. And then slowly but surely the guests were trickling in, and we were taking some guests out. And most of the time, you know, you didn't have more than, you know, sometimes 2 or 3 people on the vehicle. That was it. And on a good few occasions, I remember going on game drive with 3 people or 2 people, and I was the only vehicle on the game reserve totally. So basically we had the whole area to ourselves. Then another lady was working here, Sabella. She also got some guests at Woodbury, and myself and her it was quite nice just to be the 2 of us out there guiding, because, you know, we would chat amongst ourselves on the radio, and we would say where things are, and we worked very well as a team for that period when we were on the reserve alone, basically, and it was a lot of fun. But anyways, the one day she called me and said, no, she's got a cheetah sighting, and it seems like they want to hunt zebra. I wasn't too far away, so I immediately changed my plan and went towards her area. Then from the distance, the guests, we noticed the zebra, we didn't notice the cheetah. And from a distance, it was a good 300 meters away, we just saw these zebras running. And what a sight it was just to see animals like zebra being so big, running like they were. Realize that something is terribly wrong here. And we saw the cheetah chasing, and yeah, the cheetah actually managed to catch a young foal. And that foal obviously got killed. But that happened not too far from us, a little bit east from this location, just over the first dune to the east here. And, you know, being a naturalist, and Morgan also spending a lot of time in the bush, yeah, the truth of the matter is we do become desensitized to a lot of things that might be considered to be cruel and not very nice and things like that, like animal kills. And I can understand where people's sensitivity comes in. The first kill I saw, it was crazy, and I still remember it. So I can definitely relate to what you all are saying when it comes to the sensitive side of things. But I'm sure Ralph can also tell you the first few kills that he saw and witnessed for himself for the first time. Your mind and your brain, until it happens, you can't comprehend it, because most of the time, you know, when we're in domestic situations, we might see a cat catch a mouse or a bird, and we sort of get used to that. But when you see big animals chasing and catching other big animals, it's totally different. And another sighting that really comes to mind was, again, another cheetah sighting, and also just to the east of here at Hlosi Pan, a gentleman that works here who's now really worked his way up in the ladder, Mr. Lucky, who works at Lion Roars. He was watching a cheetah. It was it the coalition? I think it was the previous coalition, the two males that we had out here. And he called me and he said, no, there's a cheetah that's busy just now, caught a baby eland. And so I was just coming out of the camp and I was moments away from that area. So I went there. And yeah, when I got there, this cheetah was holding on this eland calf. But then the mother came storming back and literally chases this cheetah off of her calf. Hello. We just had a vehicle pass us. Shame, they seem really excited to see us. Yeah, so then we watched this cheetah holding onto this young eland calf, and then the mother came with those horns or their head almost touching the ground and storming in the direction of the cheetah. Cheetah, of course, let go. And the mother, in the process of trying to push that cheetah off her calf, literally stood on top of her own calf, which in a way was a blessing in disguise, because that woke up the calf completely, and the calf managed to get up on its hooves and walk back next to the mother, and the mother took the calf far away from the area. But before the eland took her calf away, you should have seen the cheetah trying to chase the eland away. Very brave, slapping its paws on the ground. And if you slap your hands with your hands and you hear that clapping sound, that's the exact sound that the paws of the cheetah were making, slapping the ground. Who knows if that calf managed to survive? We'll never know, I guess. One thing I've noticed about zebra over the time that I've worked with them and, you know, experienced being around them is how similar they are to horses. And of course they are equines, so they are related to horses, but then also how different they are to horses. One major difference between horses and the zebra, of course, you know, the stripes, but if you look at the back is extremely level with zebra. And horses being very much concave. But yeah, we'll continue this chat. Let's go back to Ukukuyo with Ralph. Let's see what he wants to show you all.
Thanks, Andrew. Yeah, and now we've headed all the way up into Namibia and the Etosha National Park. This is the Okukuyu Waterhole. It's the main camp in the Etosha National Park. It's been a little bit quiet this morning, and I think it's got a lot to do with the weather. It seemed like there was a bit of rain earlier. Doesn't look like it's raining right now, but you can see the skies are rather grey, and I think there's a little bit of rain about. Anyway, looks like we still do have some animals coming down to drink. So let's get in a little bit closer. It doesn't look like there's much wind to speak of. We're getting lovely reflections as well now. And the call there of the crowned lapwing. And that's beautiful. The blue wildebeest together with the zebra, often finding these two species together with some springbok moving around in the background, as well as some helmeted guinea fowl. And the crowned lapwing calling. Often always walking around this particular waterhole itself. And yeah, I think I'll take you on a little tour, just a mind tour of the area here around Okukuyu. If you head straight north from here, you go past, there's a big airstrip, and on your right-hand side, you'll see the Etosha Pan. But you continue on for quite a long way, and you get to Okondeka, which is the furthest you can go in that direction. And that's a good spot where you often find lions. There's the Okondeka Pride. But what we always do when we go to Etosha is the first thing that I do, we have to go and check in at reception, and then there's the sightings book. And a lot of people do write in their sightings in there. So I immediately go and just check what has been seen in the last couple of days. So very, very often there's lions been sighted at Okondeka. So generally I do head up there anyway, because it's not too far from the Moringa forest as well. And it's just one of those loops that you do on a game drive. It's a nice 3 hours. And from there, there's also Wolf's Nest, which is where there used to be a hyena den. It's not active anymore, I don't think. The last time I was there was a couple of months ago, and it wasn't active. But that doesn't mean there won't be hyenas returning. But that also is right on the edge of the pan itself. So that's a lovely drive to do. And when we do speak of the pan itself, it covers some 4,730 kilometers squared. It's massive. And when you do look at it, you can't see the other side. At its widest point, it's approximately 110 kilometers by 60 kilometers. This is the actual pan. And it's mostly dry, except after heavy rains when it floods. And then it comes in from the Ikuma and Oshigambo rivers in the north. And in the east, Fisher's Pan, which is fed by the Omutia and the Omuramba Ovambu rivers. A lot of Ovambu words, Oshivambu, should I say. And this extension of the main pan can usually hold water for much of the year. It's only a little strip. But there's permanent springs, and they're plentiful in the south, fed by the water reserves in the porous bedrock, which permeate out onto the impermeable clay floor of the pan itself. And the Etosha National Park covers an area of 22,912 kilometers. Pretty big. And when it was first proclaimed in 1907, it covered an area of around 80,000 square kilometers. But after several reductions, it was finally reduced to its present size. Giving you a little bit of a picture of the park itself. If you've never been up there, it's a very, very special place to go. And if you head then in an easterly direction, from Okukuyu, there's a very well used waterhole called Nabrani. And it's because of the plants that are around this particular waterhole, also on the edge of the pan, but they are all, there's a lot of thickets there of Acacia Nabrani, Navichilia Nabrani. So that's why it's called that. And then a little trick is you often see from that waterhole, if you look towards the pan, there's some culverts that go under the road because there's not much shade in that particular area, and the lions often like lying underneath those culverts. So you can often see the lions there at Nabrani, often elephants coming into. I've watched springbok being hunted by jackals, and then lions coming to scavenge off them at that waterhole there. So very well used the Nabrani waterhole. Then also continuing on from there, you get Gemsbok Vlakte, which is basically oryx flats. See lots of oryx in that area, hence the name. Continuing on, Olifantsbad, where the elephants like to bath. I've seen leopards there. And also lots of black-faced impala at Olifantsbad. Continuing on, you also get to Aus. There, I haven't seen too many animals. Sometimes impala, kudu, it's always the black-faced impala, and leopards. But that Aus waterhole is not one that I hang around for too long because it's not as busy. And then you sort of head through a lot of Mopani woodland from there, heading back to the main road that takes you towards Halali. But then that stretch between, there's a waterhole called Ondongab and Suida. That stretch is a very good spot for cheetah. So you've got to look out all underneath the acacia trees or any tree that's got a good amount of shade. You have a look under there, you often see cheetah on that particular area. Then heading towards Suida and Salvadora persica, because there's a lovely mustard tree next to that waterhole. Often see lots and lots of general game, but also lions, and sometimes even, if you're lucky, cheetah as well.
Wild Earth is looking for unique wildlife sightings filmed by you. They can be old or new, from anywhere in the world, and filmed on a camera or on your phone. In return, we will give you cash and a chance to see your clip on TV with your name in the credits. It's easy. Post your clip to Instagram with the hashtag WildEarthClips. Get selected and get paid. Head over to wildearth.tv/content to find out more.
think I can hear a crimson-breasted shrike. With that beautiful birds, those. It used to be the national bird of Namibia. Surprise, surprise. Now it's the ostrich, which isn't as pretty as the crimson-breasted shrike, but I think it's way more representative. This is our national animal we're looking at, the springbok. Called as such because of their very strange pronking behavior. And there's that crimson-breasted booby again. When they're very stiff-legged jump, that they can jump over 2 meters into the air, and their head goes down, and they bounce or spring, and hence the name. Whereas impala stot and sort of bounce between their front and back legs, springbok tronk. But like we were talking about earlier as well, you can see both males and females here have horns. But what I like to say to guests is, if you want to see the difference between a male and a female, or work out which is a male and which is a female, put your 2 thumbs together and have a look at the thickness next to each other, or put your pinkies together, and that's how you will see the difference between a male and a female. The females are like your 2 pinkies together, and the males are like your 2 thumbs together, so much thicker in the males. All right, so it looks like it's heating up here, but I'm just going to keep on waiting, and hopefully there's lots more animals that come down, but I'm sure Andrew's been able to find some other animals as well.
Okay, so we've made our way to another sunny spot just at the top of the plains here, and we've come across these black wildebeest over here, just really enjoying the sun and minding their own business over here. Quite an interesting looking animal, isn't it? Now, you never really find them too far away from zebra, and the reason is actually quite simple, that they do facilitate each other in grazing, which is quite nice. And the next time you see zebras grazing along the grass, just watch them very carefully. You find that they just eat the top of the grass, the fluorescence, that's what we call it. That's where the sort of the seed material is, and then the top of the stalk. Now, wildebeest, they don't particularly enjoy that too much. They prefer the shorter grasses that have already been broken down. And so often enough, you find that they will just mow over where zebras have grazed, and they can get to sort of the preferred type of grass that they want that has already been snipped down. So it's called grazing facilitation, which is quite nice. Sometimes animals help each other in that sense, and they really do complement each other in that way. Makes a lot of sense. If you're an animal that lives in open environments, you're going to be vulnerable, that it makes a lot of sense to hang around some other animals that are in your same situation. For example, zebra, often finding them together, and they tend to look out for each other. If, say, a wildebeest manage to see a predator or smell something that could be a threat nearby, you can actually see these two that are grazing over here. They've got their heads right to the ground, snipping that grass that's probably already been cut by zebra or another grazer. feel a sneeze coming. Hopefully not. Excuse me. Look at that one's tail that's lying on the ground, flicking about. Almost looks like a squirrel's tail. Hello, Raina. Yes, they are pretty dramatic, eh? And that's a good difference between blue and black wildebeest. You know, a lot of people, when they see wildebeest, they might just refer to them as wildebeest. But, there are two species of wildebeest that you find in southern Africa. So here in Amakhala, it's only the black wildebeest. And you can tell immediately if you can't see their tail, which most of the time you will see the tail. But if you can't, look at those horns, forming little ticks at the end. So it's almost like ramming-like horns. They grow out the skull and they bend forward, then they flick up. And you see when they fight, it's incredible because they lock horns and they ram each other. So head on head. Sometimes they even go right down onto the joints on their front legs just to increase that leverage and that power and push each other about. And you can see that they're advanced and adapted for it because their necks are incredibly strong. For an antelope, they do have very well developed necks, don't they? Hey there, Christine. I have felt a few wild animals in the time I've been in the bush. I have, yeah. I used to do some work with the wildlife vet out here on Amakhala, Dr. William Folds. And yeah, that's pretty much the only time. So I have felt wildebeest before. I know the skin probably looks, or the fur looks probably soft from here, but it's really quite a coarsey fur. Same goes with cheetah fur and the fur of lions. Lion's fur can be quite bristly because for the most part of the body it's short hair, quite coarse, except for of course the male who's got a beautiful big mane, which is also quite coarse. I once came across a dead scrub hare that was caught by a jackal a few years ago. Felt the fur on that, very soft fur by the way. What else have I felt? I felt elephant skin before during a darting of an elephant, yeah. Very rough, eh? What else? But yeah, with elephants, you'd be surprised that there are parts of the body with an elephant that the skin is so soft, like velvet. It's beautifully soft. Like just the underside of their trunk, very soft with an elephant. And then I've also felt crocodile before. I felt the joins on the back legs that attaches to its body. There's also very soft skin there. It's so soft that it's difficult to describe because often when we think of a crocodile, we think of a, sort of like a horned animal, which it is. I mean, there's a lot of these what do you call them now? Scutes on their body, same as a tortoise, and same appendage that they call it, a scute. What else? Waterbuck eland. Now, waterbuck is a very oily antelope. During a relocation of waterbuck on one of the game reserves, we partaked in that as part of the ground team. And basically when an animal is darted, for example, a waterbuck, you have to have a ground team nearby because the animal drops its head and the head goes to the ground and it can literally suffocate. So you've got to grab its horns, the base, and then lift the animal's head up so that the animal can continue breathing. And you'd be surprised, your hands get covered in oil. And if you're wearing whatever you're wearing, because of course, a waterbuck is going to be much more powerful than what a human will ever be. that you're quite close to the animal and your body is pretty much touching its fur. And yeah, your shirt or whatever the case may be, it gets pretty covered in oil. Oh, shame, one of them just having a good old roll. I think, basking in the sun like this does make them drowsy. They start to become sleepy and they close their eyes, but they're quite clever. Some of them are standing and they're all like the ones that are sitting are facing totally different directions. So they're prepared. They're prepared for anything that might happen. They're in the middle of this open area, so if a predator comes about, they just get up on their hooves and they run. And they can get far away from the predator, hopefully. I'm sure a lot of you remember the migration being with Isaac and, I forget the other chap's name, it'll come to me now. But yeah, when you see the wildebeest being the white-bearded wildebeest crossing the Mara River and trampling, thank you Jared, David and Isaac. So trampling over crocodiles and sometimes even stunning crocodiles if they're not careful. So wildebeest, incredibly powerful, sharp split hoof. When they enter those waters, they've got to get through to the other side as quickly as possible, and they literally walk on top of these crocodiles. Can you imagine? Can you just imagine doing that? I wouldn't like to do it, not even once, yet they do it yearly. But they've got to do it so they can survive another day by getting to the good grazing grasses. Hey there, Christine. Yeah, that would be quite right. So it's very seldom actually that you have animals in a group that all lie down at the same time. We do see it from time to time, but it's very seldom. And you have individuals that are standing watch. It's imperative for them that they stand watch. And they just take these turns in doing it. But it's instinctual for them. As soon as one stands up, you'll find that shortly afterwards it may lie down, the other one that was standing up. So they do take turns like that, and really it does help them in surviving. Now, many people say that wildebeest, black and blue, are not the smartest animals in the world. And, I often just bite my lip when I hear people saying that, because as Lauren correctly said, that animals are smart as they need to be. That's just how it is. But wildebeest, their strategies that they have in place, we see it in modern warfare nowadays. Like wildebeest, if there's a threat, they go into higher ground. Now, in modern warfare, they do exactly the same thing. Your enemy is at a huge disadvantage if you are higher than them. And then also, when they run, you find that they kick up a lot of dust. And, for trailing predators, that's not going to be very nice for their eyes. They're surely going to blink a lot and even withhold the pursuit because they're just getting sand in their face. And then also when we see territorial wildebeest, their territories are literally so compacted. It's amazing. And the whole idea is if one wildebeest gives an alarm call, the other territorial bull would like to also get that alarm call. So another classic strategy going there. But yeah, I think let's watch a clip quickly with regards to the Earth Week.
Iconic African mammals live large in humanity's imagination. Across the continent, fascinating mammals have evolved to fill every conceivable niche. Their struggles for survival, natural and anthropogenic, mirror those of wildlife the world over. Because they are so beguiling, Africa's mammals have become ambassadors for the Earth's remaining wilderness.
And well, speaking of mammals, we still do have our waterbuck here at the Djuma Dam camp, just around the area. They have split up a little bit. The males seem to have moved off. There he is, under that tree that's been ring barked with the nest of the parrots in it. We're just going to scan on back and see if there's anything else that has surprisingly come down for a drink. I'm hoping for some elephants. Come on. Where are the ellies? It's about time they came down for a bit of a spa session. The wind is still there. I don't know if the buffalo are off there in the distance still, or if they've moved off. Oh, there they are. Just on the left of your screen, you can see that telltale horn is sticking out. But still very hidden within the bush there. What else we got? Benji. So, very interesting. Yes, indeed. They do have glands that secretes a lot of oil because, like the name suggests, they like to frequent in and around the water. And so they've actually got hollow hair, but they require this oil. It does help then that they don't get waterlogged. And, it can actually make their hair rot. So that's why they're a lot more oily, because of probably evolved these special adaptations to allow them to live in quite a marshy water based environment. So that is their preferred habitat, and they've obviously evolved those specific specialized adaptations as a result, so that they can remain in water for long periods of time without the adverse effects that may come from having wet fur constantly. So that is indeed why they do, or why they are more oily. And it's a fallacy that waterbuck meat is not preferred by any animals, and that it doesn't taste good for humans as well. I've tasted it. It's very good. And also, I've seen lions feeding on waterbuck and killing them, actually, many times. Leopard as well, taking down babies, young ones. and it's just to avoid puncturing the glands that they have, which can spoil the meat or make it taste a little bit unpalatable. But as long as you avoid those glands, when working with the meat, then it's not a problem. And as I say, from my own experience, not a problem with the taste of waterbuck. So yeah, I don't know where, I think that might have been passed on through, stories of, it would have most likely have been people that, and hunters in specific, that have skinned a carcass and, cut through those glands, and then the meat is tarnished. But if worked properly, it's not a problem at all. And as I say, lots of lions I've seen feeding on them. So going from my experience, I can say that I don't believe that there's anything wrong with waterbug meat per se. Still a little bit quiet here. This seems to be our only friends are the waterbuck. The hippos looks like they've hunkered down for a sleep. But yeah, there's a nice good-looking male here. Gail, it can be sometimes, it depends on how many of them are. Like we saw with those buffalo, when they come onto the one side of the waterhole itself, the animals can still continue on, along the other side. What we often see when there's elephants that come down, they very often chase animals away, especially if they've got any calves or anything like that. Or if there's a very big herd of buffalo, it might be 200-300 strong, that then they will push the other animals away. I've noticed, in particular at the Okukuyu waterhole, when there's a lot of oryx or gemsbok, they seem to be the chief of the antelope coming down at the waterhole, and everything else, wildebeest, the zebra, the springbok, they seem to stand back from the oryx. And I think it's all to do with the very sharp and long horns that they have, and they can obviously use them very well. So everything gives the oryx a bit of a wide berth. But it's only if there's a lot of them down there that they will then dominate the waterhole. Otherwise, everything sort of joins in and drinks together. Same thing when elephants, they come in and there's lots of them, everything takes a bit of a back seat and waits until the elephants are done, and then they might move in after that. But generally, not, without speaking about buffalo, elephants, oryx, everything, all the animals sort of generally, I think, appreciate being around more numbers rather than being on their own. So they tolerate each other because it's a bit of a safety net. If there's more of them, then you've got a better chance of picking up on lions if there are any about. So it actually helps to have more numbers than less, especially if you're a prey species or one of the antelope. This guy's just grazing about. Lovely wet nose. Constantly still sniffing the air, just making sure that there's no lions about, and then every now and then having to lift your head up to get visual as well. I always think they look like teddy bears.
Whoa, that's epic.
Garden orb-web spider.
Some African wild dogs and they're chasing something.
I can honestly say I've never seen anything like that before.
Hey, can you believe it?
That is amazing.
don't think that she is actually seeing something. I think she's just making sure. Reggie, yes, indeed. Only one species of waterbuck, but there are a couple of species that are quite similar to them, like the Sitatunga, which you get in Botswana in the Okavango Delta, and the Lechwe also, but more water-based. So even though we call a waterbuck, I would say that Sitatunga and Lechwe are more, so you don't find them anywhere else except in marshy areas. So they're actually more water-based than a waterbuck per se. But yeah, so not the same waterbuck. There might be ones in India and so on. I'd actually have to have a look just to see if there are any other waterbuck, but not in our parts. But I'll just check and see if there are any others. Lenny, llamas. Now, llamas, if we're talking llamas, it's more like a ostrich, no? So it would not be like a waterbuck. No, this would be closer to an ostrich. So just going back to the previous question, there's two types, the common waterbuck and the Dafasa. Yes, that's correct. Now I've just reminded myself. And the common waterbuck, which you're seeing here, has got that very conspicuous white ring encircling the rump, while the Dafasa has a wide white patches on either side of the rump, so they don't have that circle. And they're also, I think, further up north, and we don't get them here. No, so the llama, that's also, I think, closer. You would probably have them being more like camels. Yeah, not the. What was I think that bird-like thing that looks like an ostrich, but a llama, closer to the camels, and in so being, their family is the Camelidae, which means that they'd be closer to giraffe, because giraffe are our closest relatives to the camel. But interesting, and they're also woolly, like and hairy, furry, like the water now as the buffalo, and they're going down for a bit of a rest, but also to ruminate. So yes, Jarrett, director in MC, quite correctly said, I'm thinking of an emu. Absolutely. Llama, emu, you can obviously understand why I got them mixed up. But yeah, so emu more like an ostrich, llamas more like camels, and then so being more like the giraffe. What do we got there? Natal spurfowl is always making a noise, it sounds like. If I can hear them correctly over the wind. See there, nice close shot of these waterbuck. But the hair is hollow, so it does help with thermoregulation as well. And you'd always think that with being so hairy, when it's very hot, they must struggle. But I think it does actually do the opposite, because I think it does trap air. So when it's hot, they keep cool. When it's cold, they keep warmer. It does have that more so. We get a lovely, nice close-up picture of this beautiful girl. As I say that, she's a bit camera shy. Not so the male. And now, when you get bigger groups of waterbuck, you often find they leave their youngsters like in a creche. So you might have 20, sometimes even 30 youngsters, all in a group. And you normally have a couple of females that are babysitters, and they'll stay in one spot where the rest of the group might move off and feed, and then they'll come back and suckle the youngsters periodically. But you might find a whole group of babies, even this age, all together with just one or two females, and that's quite normal. This is obviously quite a small group. Mildred, yeah, they do have a very conspicuous white ring on their bums. And they are cute and cuddly, aren't they? They do say that, well, the myth or the legend is that they were the first ones on Noah's Ark, and the toilet seats were still wet. So that's why they have those white rings on their bums. But, more scientifically, they do say that it is one of the follow me signs, as a lot of animals have in the bush. Whether this is in fact the reason, it is a theory that is widely peddled. Like the whites of behind the giraffe's ears, the black behind the lion's ears, the fluffy tail on the end of a raised warthog's tail, all ways to follow each other through the bush, or when they have to scatter, or you're getting away from predators, etc. A way for them to follow each other, or follow me signs, as they say. Whether or not that is in fact the reason for them having that, I'm not quite sure, but that is the theory per se. There is a lot of characteristics that are similar, even though they might have different traits. A lot of the animals, especially the prey species, do have these markings that I think assist them in following each other. I think when we look at the likes of cheetah cubs really resembling honey badgers, I think that theory is definitely spot on, because the likeness is uncanny. They definitely do look like honey badgers. So I think that one is really true. I'm not saying that the other ones aren't. It's just I like to explore around these theories, because just because it's written or somebody told you doesn't make it correct. And a lot of these theories that we do punt, it might not be based in science or in fact, and it might just be stories that have been passed on and you heard it from somebody else, so we tell the same story. And I just like to delve a little bit deeper and work out if it is indeed true, and bounce that off my experience. So, if animals do use that to follow each other, I don't know. They also speak about impalas using their metatarsal gland as an olfactory way of being able to follow each other through the bush. As they jump, they flex that gland, and then they say that it leaves a scent trail. That one would be difficult to prove or disprove unless we had some kind of machinery that would be able to pick up that smell, or if we moved in behind impala and we're able to smell it. But just because we can smell it or not doesn't make it true. It's kind of like with elephants and the communication that we aren't able to hear. We actually need auditory equipment to pick up the sounds that they do make that we can't hear because it's too low for our ears. But I do like to try and prove or disprove as far as we can. So these waterbuck do seem rather relaxed. Every now and then just looking off in that Mulwati area down towards the river line, and that would be, I think, where any danger would come from. Currently, the leopards like to move within the cover of the thickets there, but with them going down now, I don't think there's anything in the direct vicinity that is for them to worry about. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so relaxed. Darren, yeah, I hope so. I hope that it looks like there's definitely been a lot of rain, and I know that there has been, and I think this year is going to be good for the wildlife going through the winter. And there we had a Meaves or long-tailed starling. Yeah, looks like, is it a red-billed hornbill? Yeah, might be picking up ants and termites. Is it anting? It might be anting. Eating some in between there. I think it was just eating. Very often what they may do is literally lie on ants when there's a nest, and then they shake their feathers about, and they actually like the ants going on them and excreting their formic acid. I think it feels good, and it does help them a little bit with their feather maintenance, etc. But we often see, especially the hornbills, anting, as we call it. Just have another check and see if our resident parrots are at home. Doesn't look like it. Just got to keep this camera moving because you never know where or what you're going to see next. So the parrots, as with, we could say domestic parrots, but, pet parrots, they've got a very high-pitched call. It's quite a tropical sound, I think. I think we can hear them calling now. Every now and then you can hear the parrots. Erica, yeah, I think there's quite a bit of involuntary movement, but it is definitely a conscious movement that they're doing. But I think moving their tail, I think they do it so much that a lot of the time they don't think about it. But it's definitely because you can see if flies land. I've seen it many times with zebra and with giraffe. You can actually see when flies are biting them on one side, they flick it on that, in that direction to get rid of the fly wherever it's biting it near to the rear end. So it's definitely a conscious movement. And it was quite interesting because when we had the character Stompy on Kariga, and he had his tail that was bitten off, but probably by another zebra. But so it was much shorter, and you could see that he was trying to swat with his tail that wasn't there anymore. So he had this little stump, but he landed up moving it around a lot quicker. And I think that definitely a conscious movement that he was doing, because you can see it's got intent of what he's trying to do. You can actually see that he's attempting to move it to one side or the other. So yes, most definitely. In my opinion, I would say it's 100% a conscious movement, but they do it so much, like, things that we might do every day, all day, like walking. You swing your arms next to your sides. And it's a conscious movement, but sometimes you do it, since you can walk, so it becomes an unconscious movement, although you are unconsciously thinking about it, if that makes sense. Brett, you're very welcome. Thanks for joining us and watching the show. It's lovely to have you and everybody else on board with us, and that's what it's all about. As we try and get a nice close look at these waterbuck and just to see the actual fur itself. Like Andrew was talking about earlier, a lot of the animals, their fur is not as soft as it might seem or how it looks. And waterbuck's fur, it's very, I don't know how to explain it. It's not smooth. It's very rough. It's not as cuddly as it might seem. It's actually quite bristly. So it seems like we've had a wonderful show, from Lauren and her hyena on the giraffe kill to Andrew and his elephants, and there's 2 little baby calves. That was awesome. And with me, from the buffalo herds and all the animals that came down at Okukuyu. It was a little bit quiet there today. We've also had the hippos here, and now these waterbuck. It's been a lovely, relaxing show, but with some little highlights in between. It's been wonderful. We are slowly heading towards the end of the show, so I'd just like to say thanks to everybody for watching. Of course, our hippos are also saying thank you for watching. It must have been a good joke as well. But yeah, the Wild Earth team, of course. And as always, I have to say thanks to the guys behind the scenes that don't get to talk on the show or show their faces, but they're the ones that make it all happen. From the directors to the tech guys, the producers, etc. Very, very important part of the team. And like I always say, we got the easy task. We just watch what's in front of us and talk nonsense. Looks like there's a woodpecker. Is it a cardinal or is it a bearded? Looks like we're going to be ending the show with him. And as I said before, he's got his tongue protecting his brain that he doesn't get concussion. So, winding down, folks. Don't forget the Sunset Safari from 2:30, and then tomorrow we get to do it all again. Thanks for watching. Ciao for now.